Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our seminar. To start our presentation today, I'm going to give you some reminder of our licensing regime, because I understand that most of you are actually TCSP licensees or staff of licensees or members of some relevant professional bodies. So instead of giving you some boring facts, I try to give you some reminders on those issues that maybe you have misunderstood or less focused on. So to start with, I'd like to take you back 21 months earlier to see what and why we are required to implement such licensing regime at the first place. First of all, according to information provided by our colleagues from the police, Hong Kong actually have cases whereby TCSP licensee have been used in money laundering activities. And that attract attention internationally, particularly from an international body, the Financial Action Task Force. We call it FATF in short. This FATF, let me give you some more information of this organization. This is an intergovernmental body that sets anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing standard internationally. It was it was established in the year 1989, and its main objectives is to promote international standard that what I've said for anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing, and to promote legal, regulatory, and operational measures for combating money laundering and terrorist financing. They made lots of recommendations to their members' jurisdictions. And actually, we have been, for quite a long time, affected by the recommendation of this organization. If you remember that quite some years ago, you can walk by a booth on the street corner, sign up a form, and you will obtain a pre-approved credit card right away in a few days. Right now, if you apply for a credit card, it will take months or weeks of time to complete the whole application procedure so that you can obtain your new credit card. Why? Because they have to implement the recommendation of the FATF. The bank have to do all those CDD or record-keeping requirements to ensure that they comply with the necessary CDD requirements. And for TCSPs, the FATF considered that TCSPs were gatekeepers. They help to prevent abuse of the use of legal persons like companies, as well as some legal arrangement like trust to be used for money laundering or terrorist financing purposes. And for that, they require the members' jurisdiction, like Hong Kong, to regulate the TCSPs, as well as to implement statutory requirements to require the TCSPs to observe and comply with the CDD and record-keeping requirements. Hong Kong, being a member of the FATF, are required to regulate TCSPs and subject TCSPs to the statutory CDD and record-keeping requirements. And to help Hong Kong to establish, to build up a more robust and effective anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing regime, the Companies Registry have taken up the role of, Hong Kong actually has implemented the licensing regime for TCSPs and to implement the regime of Significant Controllers Register. And that both help to improve Hong Kong's efficiency in anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing. And by that, we hope that we can help to strengthen Hong Kong's position as an international financial center. to implement the licensing regime and to implement the regulation of TCSPs. And on the 1st of March last year, the amended Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorist Financing Ordinance come into operation. If you know that before that day, this ordinance is called the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorist Financing Blanket Financial Institutions Ordinance. Because on that day, the whole regime was extended to cover designated non-financial businesses and professions, including lawyers, accountants, TCSPs, and estate agents. And by implementing this amended ordinance, the ordinance introduced the TCSP licensing regime, and that's why we are now all subject to the regulation of the AMLO. The AMLO also appointed the Companies Registry as the regulatory authorities for TCSPs. In that respect, the Companies Registry have set up a new office in Kowloon Bay to regulate the TCSPs and to administer the whole licensing regime for TCSPs. And that's where I and my colleagues, Christy, are coming from. Maybe some of you have already visited our office at Kowloon Bay already. And from January last year, we have set up a dedicated website for the promotion and administration of the licensing regime. And by posting all the information of the licensing regime at the website, every person or any one of you can visit our website to obtain the full range of information, including those guidelines, download the forms, view the demonstration videos, obtain the FAQs, etc., so that you can have a full range of information of the licensing regime. And from April this year, we have set up a dedicated thematic page for AML CFT requirements for TCSPs, so that you can visit our website to obtain the full range of requirements applicable to TCSPs at our website. For those who wish to submit their application electronically through their website, they can easily complete the registration procedure, and right away you can use our website to submit application electronically. For that, I will strongly recommend that being a TCSP licensee, you can use the online services of our website. And being TCSP licensee, I'd like to remind you that your name and business address are posted at our website at the register of TCSP licensees. The purpose of posting that register is to let members of the public to ascertain whether a person is a licensed TCSP. Another point I would like to remind you is that the registrar have published 3 sets of guidelines last year to help promote and administer the licensing regime. Particularly, I would like to draw attention to the first 2 guidelines. Maybe I call it the licensing guide and the AML guide. The licensing guides actually serve as a handbook for TCSP. It tells you who need to apply for the license, who need to undergo the fit and proper test, when you have to make certain type of application, or when you have to notify the registrar of changes, cessation of business, etc. That serves as a handbook for TCSP licensees and their staffs, so that I would strongly recommend that you to familiarize yourself with this guideline. It also point out if you fail to comply with certain requirements of the MLO, what is the the consequences of those failure to comply with the requirement. Sorry. And the second guideline, we call the AML guide, it was published under Section 7 of the MLO to provide guidance to TCSP licensee for the operation of the requirements of Schedule 2 to the MLO. The requirement of Schedule 2 to the MLO actually cover the CDD and record-keeping requirements. One point I would like to draw your attention is that since this guideline is issued under Section 7 of the MLO, when the registrar consider whether a licensee have failed to comply with the requirement of Schedule 2, the company's registry, the registrar have to make reference to this guideline to see whether the person have actually contravened the requirement of Schedule 2. One point I would like to mention is that those three guidelines are guidelines issued by the registrar. There was a guideline issued by the FedF earlier this year, and that's the guidance. That's the guidance for a risk-based approach for TCSP. That guidance actually is not enforceable in Hong Kong because what you are required to is to comply with the requirement of the MLO, the requirement of our guidelines. But that guideline serves to provide you some useful tips or best practices internationally promoted by the FedF. And that guideline is available for download at our thematic AML CFT web page. So if you have time, we strongly recommend that you to have a look on that guideline. Right now, I would like to go through a brief coverage of the licensing requirement for TCSPs. First of all, if anyone right now want to conduct trust or company's business in Hong Kong must apply for a license and satisfy the fit and proper test. If anyone conduct trust or company services without a license in Hong Kong right now, on conviction, the person is liable for imprisonment of up to 6 months or fine of up to 100,000 Hong Kong dollar. After an applicant is granted a license, the person become a licensee, and remember that on granting the license, we will impose condition on your license. And being a licensee, you are required to comply with the condition of the license. If you are not aware that the condition imposed your license, ask your staff to have a look on the condition and to make sure that you comply with the condition of license. Because if you fail to comply with the condition of license, you may be subject to the disciplinary action of the registrar. And being a licensee, you are not free to appoint a new director, new partners, or to have new shareholder, I mean the ultimate owner. And for that, you have to apply for the prior approval of the registrar. On that point, I will further elaborate later in my presentation. And you have to notify the registrar of change in particulars within 1 month of the change. And for certain reason, if you decide to cease your trust or company service business, you have also required to notify the registrar of your intended cessation of business. Regarding renewal of license, maybe you may say that it's too early to talk about renewal, but I would like to take this opportunity to remind you that renewal of license is not automatic. You have to make your application. And the envelope set out that you must make your application more than 60 days before your current license expires. More than 6 days. So remember to check the date of expiry of the license and make good time to apply for renewal of license. And for that, if you, for certain reason, forget or be late in submit your application of renewal of license, sorry, we cannot accept your application for renewal. You have to make a new application for license. And when your current license expires, you will not be able to conduct trust or company service business until you obtain a new license. So remember to check the expiry date of your current license and make good time for making an application for renewal. On my previous slide, I mentioned about the requirement to obtain the registrar's prior approval. You may say, well, why you need a prior approval? Because being, say, a limited company, you are free to appoint a new director. You are free to allot shares to a new shareholder. The reason being that, if you remember, I said on applying for a new license, the applicant and every relevant person, like director, partners, or ultimate owners of the applicant, have to undergo the fit and proper test. And after we have conducted the fit and proper test, and the registrar considered that every such person are fit and proper to carry on or be associated with trust or company service business, then a license may be granted to the applicant. So on the same token, if a licensee wish to add a new director, partner, or ultimate owner, the licensee must apply to the registrar, and only after the registrar are satisfied that the person to be added is fit and proper to carry on or be associated with the trust or company service business, then an approval will be given. And therefore, after the licensee obtains the approval of the registrar, then the licensee can make those necessary arrangements to appoint a new director, add the partner, or ultimate owner, not vice versa. And after the addition is made, the change is made, remember to notify the registrar, that is our Carlton Bay office, using the form TCSP 6 about the change in particulars of the licensee. Here I would like to remind licensee that if you are a corporation, that is a company, and also a TCSP licensee, you are simultaneously subject to the requirement of the company's ordinance as well as the envelope. So for instance, if there's change in the particulars, you have to check whether it's covered by the company's ordinance or the envelope, or both the company's ordinance and the envelope, and give notification to the registrar depending on which type of changes or what particulars have changed. For example, if the company have changed its registered office address, you have to report to the registrar using an NR1 for the change in ROA, as well as you have to notify the TCSP registry using a form TCSP 6, notify us that you have changed the address. Because we occasionally note that there is some confusion by some of the licensee. They simply file an ND2A or NR1 to the company's registry and consider that they have already notified us. So remember that if there's change in your particulars, check whether you are required to notify the company's registry, Causeway Bay, and MOT, and our TCSP registry in Kowloon Bay. Here I will briefly cover the AML CFT requirements because my colleagues and Christy and our colleagues from the JFIU will give you some more detailed accounts of those requirements. Right here, you see that there's two categories of requirement for TCSP. The requirement under the MLAW and our AML guide that covers the CDD and record-keeping requirements, and that are applicable to TCSP on the 1st of March last year. And the other is categories under other legislation of Hong Kong, including those in the area of financial sanctions, terrorist financing, and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. That actually was implemented quite a long time ago and affect every one of us in Hong Kong, not simply applicable to TCSPs. Everybody in Hong Kong actually has been subject to the requirement predating the amendment to the MLAW last year. And if you come across suspicious transaction, you're required to report to the Joint Financial Intelligence Unit, JFIU. Today we have a speaker from the JFIU. She will share with you more on this subject. And one of the key elements of a licensing regime, as I mentioned earlier, was the enforcement of the requirement of the MLAW. Actually, we have different types of enforcement measures or monitoring measures to ensure the compliance of TCSP for the relevant requirements. I'd like to mention two of the measures we apply: the site inspection and the interviews. I'm not sure whether any one of you here have been invited for an interview at our Kowloon Bay office or have been inspected at your business address. Actually, we, depending on the case, may invite person to come to our Kowloon Bay office for an interview, or our staff may visit the business premises of licensee or applicants to check and see whether the applicant or the licensee are compliant with the relevant requirements. For site inspection, our staff will visit, mention the business premises and interview the relevant person, like the director, compliance officers, money laundering reporting officers, and will also check the business transaction record of the applicant or licensee to see whether they are compliant with the relevant requirements. For some case, we will make prior appointment. We'll send you a letter saying that when we will visit your office or business to conduct the inspection, and sometimes we will conduct surprise visit. In case during our inspection or our interview, you find non-compliance with the requirement, I would say that there's a whole range of sanctions available to the registrar, depending on the nature, seriousness, and circumstances of individual cases. Depending on the nature and seriousness, we will apply appropriate sanction proportionate to the non-compliance. Say, for some very minor non-compliance, we may issue warning letter or advisory letter to advise the licensee to remedy the non-compliance. If the licensee have contravened the CDD or record-keeping requirement or have not been compliant with the condition of license, the registrar may consider taking disciplinary actions against the non-compliant licensee. There are 3 types of disciplinary actions available to the registrar. Say the registrar may publicly reprimand a licensee for non-compliance, or the registrar may order the licensee to remedy the non-compliance within a specified period, or even the registrar may impose a pecuniary penalty against the licensee. And the pecuniary penalty to be applied to the licensee may be up to 500,000 Hong Kong dollar. And actually, there have been cases of non-compliance. And if you have time, I would suggest that you can go to our website to see the highlight of the disciplinary cases that we have posted at our website, so that you will learn how we apply our disciplinary action. And for those who commit offenses under the M law, we will take prosecution action. Actually, we have taken quite a number of prosecution action, and the facts of some convicted case have also been posted at our website. So if you have time, you are welcome to visit our website to know more about the consequences of committing an offense under the M law. And lastly, if the registrar is no longer satisfied that a person, like the director, ultimate owner, partner of a licensee, is fit and proper to carry on or be associated with a trust or company service business, she may consider suspend or revoke the license, or on expiry of the license, we may consider not to renew the license. Here, I would like to share with you some facts and numbers about the implementation of licensing regime. You can have a reference yourself, so I'm not going to go through it one by one. Just for the summonses issue, you will note that we have issued more than 700 summonses. For that, I would like to clarify a bit that many of the summonses were issued in respect of carrying on trust or company services without a license. For TCSP who conduct the business without a license, we may issue more than one summons to that offending TCSP, because that TCSP may be acting as the company secretary for more than one company. So for one offending TCSP, we will issue more than one summons, making up quite big numbers here. And that sums up what we have done so far. Before we end this session, I'd like to echo what I have mentioned earlier in my presentation. Why we implement this licensing regime in the first place is, to a great extent, to fulfill Hong Kong's obligation to international community, that's the FedF. Actually, we, Hong Kong, have undergone mutual evaluation of the FedF last year, and it took more than 1 year to complete the mutual evaluation. And in September this year, the report for Hong Kong's mutual evaluation was published. And I would like to report to all of you that Hong Kong has become the first member jurisdiction of the FedF from Asia Pacific region to have achieved a satisfactory pass for its overall AML CFT compliance. That's quite a great achievement for Hong Kong, because we are the first members jurisdiction in Asia Pacific, not Singapore, not Australia, not New Zealand. It's Hong Kong that we achieve what others failed to achieve. And for that ends my presentation.